Hey everybody, you're welcome back again. We're on my channel. Who cares? A11Y bar, blind, accessible resource. So, what does that resource part mean, right? And let's rewind the tape a little bit. Why am I so adamant that everyone get microphones? Everyone get cameras. Everyone. Why? Why didn't I not do this a decade ago? Well, better late than never, right? And let me take it back to about 2022. I mentioned to y'all I have done work alongside with OfficeHours.global. If anybody has watched Leo Laporte's network, the This Week in Tech show, that's usually on Sundays. And on Tuesdays, it's Mac Break Weekly. So Alex Lindsay founded the Office Hours Global community March 25th, 2020. And I kind of hung around, saw it at afar, saw it at a close up, looked around the tires, kicked it a little. And I looked at just yesterday, May 5th, 2021 is when I started using Discord. And as I was looking around and having fun with the community, there was a gentleman that I ran across, and his name is Dave. And so Dave is actually here with me today, and thank you to Dave for giving me his time to be here with us. But you know, one specific thing that I want to mention about Dave and I is I mentioned the audio video aspect, right? Well, it's because of Dave and the ideas that he enabled me to just think openly. And our first episode for Office Hours Global was to deal with accessibility, otherwise A11Y in my title of my channel, right? Because who cares if Dave doesn't know was my late mom's famous saying. And who cares if you're blind, or who cares if you're dot 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 fill in the blank. And I actually just want to know, well, who is Dave Tropman? So welcome, Dave, and thank you so much for your time, sir. But who is Dave?
Dave's a guy who grew up in a very safe area, never had any problems, has six brothers and sisters. He was the middlest of the bunch, so I had two older sisters and two younger to harass me, and one older brother to beat me up, and a younger brother to harass myself. So that's the family background. My parents were both married after the war. My mom came over from London, England. So we all learned to speak proper English and know all our kings. And she taught us all how to behave and how to get along with people. My younger brother had cerebral palsy, so it affected the whole family, and it affected many of the things that I did in my life, in that I had an insight into what the needs are and how a person behaves. And also it was introducing me, as he grew up, into a community of people who are marginalized and who do have distinct needs. And therefore, I was privy to some of their discussions about what their problems were, what they would prefer, and then how my brother worked very hard to lobby government for improvements, both in the physical environment and in the legal environment,
Right.
protecting and ensuring a lifestyle for people with disabilities.
Right.
So in that sense, that's the background I bring to it.
So,
But on the father side, my father is the last branch in my family, so
right.
he's very happy to have boys.
Right.
And he taught me to challenge authority.
Ah.
So you don't necessarily challenge it without a right to do so.
Right.
But at the same time, whenever somebody says, well, you're not allowed to do that, I would wonder, why not? And then
You
the
want to know both
questions would
sides of the coin,
resume
so to
and
speak.
things would change. So I became somewhat political
Right.
later in my life. In the early part of my life, I was busy, raising a family and being myself.
Mhm.
But later in life, I've gotten into some of the legislation in my own local community, the municipality I live in.
Very cool.
And I've written a policy for the city, which was adopted in May of 2017,
Awesome.
concerning, open government, transparency,
Mhm.
as well as including community in the process. So if you take the definition of community, it includes about 110 different sectors.
Mhm.
Community is everything from chess players to sports teams,
Right.
and I taught the city a lot in
Right.
terms of what community is, and the disabled community were part of that. So
You bring a couple interesting words to me that just keep uh, tickling at me. So community has been a really interesting term this week for me particularly. Um, I did a challenge for doing basically 3 videos, and it was amongst the Let's Get Live community, and just again how we bring different abilities to the table. A friend of mine that has helped and does is continuing to help with the channel at times, Julie. She also has cerebral palsy, and earlier when you mentioned about your brother, you mentioned some words about, I think it's actions, or there's a specific phrase or term that you use, but what made you feel that you may had to advocate or had to be, different towards learning, or just adapting with your brother? Like, what brought that perspective for you?
Well, as he's my younger brother, it's kind of like my job to protect him. So
Right.
when people were being mean to him, or people were wondering why he behaves that way, or is he crazy? I mean, a 5-year-old who's not paying any attention and is just messing around, people wonder, what's wrong with that kid? So I was always having to explain him. And as I grew older, I learned more about what the medical community knew about it, and that was very little in the beginning. They also didn't give him very long to live. They thought, his deficiencies were going to prevent him from being able to go to school or do anything. Well, they lived to 35. So he
Yeah.
was independent for his last 5 years, lived alone,
Right.
had his own travels, and had his own assisted income.
Right.
And I was just his helper because he couldn't have a phone. So he had to kind of come over and use mine.
Right.
And he was very independent because he would travel to Ottawa, which is very far away.
Interesting.
Uh, I think he would hitchhike. But anyway, he would travel to Ottawa to speak to our MP in Parliament about
Right.
disability issues. And one of his favorite phrases was, when you're disabled, what are you going to do about it? And they would go, well, I don't know what to say. He says, no, you will be. At some point in your life, as
Yeah.
you get older,
Yeah.
you're going to have disabilities. And they go, oh yeah, right. And he says, look, you wear glasses. You don't walk with a cane yet, but you may,
It's
and
like,
you'll want that sidewalk dip to be there.
and it's those terms that sometimes we get so confused which one's the right way to use it. Hey, should I say your abilities? Hey, should I say my disabilities? What should I say? And again, he's so correct that you just never know, because again, for vision, you could be 99 years old and have 20/20 vision. You could be 99 years old and have no vision. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no such marker that says, okay, you at this age when you're 50, okay, this goes out, this goes out. Yes, maybe in
Mm-hmm.
your body, your legs might go out because you have muscles that are grinding on top of each other and you didn't take care of
Or
yourself.
phlebitis or diabetes. Yes,
Diabetes and,
right.
and all of
Yeah.
these other. So sometimes it's just funny how we always do put ailment to certain, I guess, perspectives of, oh yeah, this is why, blind people, or this is why, you're deaf, or uh, yeah, if you listen to
Yeah.
the concerts a lot and how environments, maybe you might go deaf, but
You might lose some of your hearing, yeah. But
yeah.
if you're a steam fitter, you lose it sooner. So,
Right.
I've worked in refineries and it's a pretty
Uh-huh.
noisy place. And if you don't wear earmuffs or earplugs, you do lose your hearing. And I learned a lot about hearing from a hearing specialist nurse. So, but,
Interesting.
you mentioned the disability that you have is unexpected. You can suddenly have Parkinson's. A very close colleague of mine who I worked with for about 9 years, and we were very close friends too, developed diabetes and lost his sight. He had to give up his business. He had a running corporation that he was running, and he had to leave everybody and get rid of his gear and move back in with his parents because he had to learn to live as a blind person now.
Right.
And he didn't live very long after that, which is unfortunate. I didn't know he passed away until I called his mother, and then she said last August he
Wow.
went. So it's
And
very sad for
and
him
I'm
to
sorry
have
for your loss
that.
there, Dave. And
No,
like I
that's
said, is
okay.
well, with that said,
I have
is
a long list of lost friends, so don't worry about apologizing.
well, like I said again, it's the ailment that really. Cause I'm sorry that he had to lose his business right then and there, but the thing was, is
Mm.
he was not prepared for losing his sight, right?
Yes.
If he would have had someone to
Yes.
just coach him on a couple different things, like, okay, look, you can't see, now you're going to use a screen reader. You might have just heard my phone's yap away, and that's the screen reader yapping
Hmm.
at me to say,
That's
hey,
right.
what
You bet.
time is it,
Yeah.
such and such. But again, it's the letting people be aware and letting people know, like,
Hmm.
we have this AI thing at our cusp right now, nipping at our heels, and yes, it's gonna stay. Yes, it's gonna be there for quite some time, but we've had it for quite some time to begin with, right? Ray Kurzweil,
Hmm.
or if we think about lidar, the lidar system in itself was made in what, in the 70s, I think it was, and
Yeah.
now
Yep.
lidar's on your iPhone 14 or 12 Pros, and so
Hmm.
and any Pro phones on the iPhone side, but
Yeah.
it's
We
the
can thank NASA
technologies.
for LiDAR.
Well, that's the point exactly. So it's just like we took big things, make them into small things, and then small things we want to make them into big things. I don't know. Um, you know what? I'll tell you what. You're telling me about some stories there, and I want to. I mean, you seem like this guy that holds a big camera and does a lot of audio video work. But could you take me into storytelling mode for a quick second? And where, like,
Sure.
what do you do with what you know, or like, are you an IT guy? Are you AV guy? Yeah, give me a little glimpse of your life. Who's Dave? Like, what's Dave about?
I was a TV producer for 45 years.
Whoa. Okay.
I've run studios. I've built mobile units, trucks. I've covered everything from Mother Teresa's tour of Alberta
Wow.
to major openings of big giant buildings and
Hmm.
also junior hockey. I've done, heck, I've done cricket too. I'll bet nobody around here has done a cricket game except in the UK.
So who's playing? Oh, UK
Um,
versus somebody.
no, it was two Canadian teams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a very large Caribbean population in Canada. We also have a very, very large East Indian community, and they play
Interesting.
cricket.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So it's a national game for many of those guys. So it's a great game. I like it actually a lot more than I like baseball. But anyway, who's Dave? He's been shooting video for other people for a long time. So I started in cable. Now, in Canada, the cable companies had by law to set aside a channel, an open channel for anybody who wanted to make their own messages could have a channel to put it on. So they gave each of the cable companies a requirement to have an administrator who will vet who's coming in and what they can do. And the cable companies were required to have equipment on hand to show people how to do it. So it had to be broadcast quality equipment, broadcast kind of studio. And our local city had two cable companies, so they competed with each other. And this meant that they had to compete on quality too. So we each got to produce very high quality stuff and put it on its own channel. Now, it had an audience of maybe 200 on any good night because it was really people who knew people who watch people like we do right now with office hours.
Right.
So many of the shows got a reputation. I've had a few awards for it because of the work that I did with the community, but that was called the community channel. And all across Canada, we've had these community channels, and they're local. They don't really want to speak to the nation. They just want to talk to their community in their own language and in their own way with the things that they feel make them Canadian
Right.
and what make them special Canadians,
Right.
because the Italians are special Canadians as much as the Persians are.
Have you
I've
heard of a channel or show area called Double Tap TV? Or
I've heard of it, yes,
okay,
yeah,
because
but I've never
so
seen it.
would that be something like what you're describing to me with this community basic? Because that specific channel or programming is usually on like the blind or disabled content, but
Oh,
it,
okay.
it it feels like it's a community driven type of broadcast that happens. So is this kind of the same kind of description that what I'm understanding you're
Yes, it
describing?
is.
Okay,
The people who volunteered wouldn't have any experience operating a camera. They don't know how to do lighting. They don't know where a microphone should go. They learn to be on camera and behind the camera. I learned with the East Indian community that the Sikhs would rather operate the gear than be in front of it, and the Hindis wanted to be in front of it performing and weren't really interested in the equipment. And so it was a great split until, of course, the Golden
Hey,
Temple
we have viewers in India. This is going to be an
issue.
interesting little conversation that I'll get feedback from. But maybe they'll leave us a comment
Yeah,
down below because
that's
that's
okay.
interesting.
That's
That's an
okay.
interesting comment that you said.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So my East Indian community worked with me, but I also worked with the Chileans, and they were expat Chileans who were driven out during the Civil War there. And they came to Canada and made a life for themselves, and they did all their stuff in Spanish. And when we had green room meetings to script and all that stuff, it was always fun to just sort of stand in the doorway and listen to all these people planning their show and turn to me and say, what do I think? And I would answer, well, I usually like pepperoni on my pizza, because I didn't understand a word their Spanish was saying. But I've also worked with the Korean community and
Right.
the Chinese community, and I've the German community and the Italians, of course, the French Canadians. I think in the whole time I was at the cable company, the only community I hadn't worked with was the Japanese. And they make all the gear, but they didn't ever want to
You
make
just
a
use all
show.
the Sony cameras.
Well, I learned later, of course, that the Japanese weren't really into being high profile because during the war, your country and mine put them in jail
Right.
and swept them out of the neighborhoods and just sent them off into the hinterlands. So
Right.
I learned later about that because now I am closely involved with the Japanese community.
That's
I'm
awesome.
part of a partnership with them. Our local community, we have these elected community organizations for neighborhoods. And I'm the president of our neighborhood community, and we have a facility. And they added onto this facility an enormous addition because they had been given money from the government to apologize for putting them in jail during the war.
Wow.
And they built onto our community, and now I'm side by side with them. We have a special built kitchen just for Japanese ladies to make dinner.
That is
And
awesome.
we have special facilities in the building for Japanese ceremonies and things that they like to do.
Right.
Some of the places I've worked are children's services for the Alberta government. I was a consultant with them to teach video conferencing to everyone in 100 different communities of Alberta. And that was something which put me in good stead when the pandemic happened. I'd used all this software and I knew the gear. The camera I used, I've got 3 or 4 cameras behind me where you can't see them,
Okay.
but I have 3 or 4 generations of cameras, and I've had the big
Could you
giant one the
describe a couple
newsmen
to me?
use. I can show you.
Sure. And it is interesting, as you said, Dave, earlier. You mentioned about cultures and Japan. I'm not sure if you still have your ears in, but
I do.
okay, cool. So with Japan and that, and just the East Indian that I am an East Indian by descent, but born in Africa and Zambia. However, it's the culture thing that I found fascinating. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she actually has Japanese descent, and the parameters even between that or the Philippines, Filipino cultures. When you're Asian, and it's so similar in the way we treat each other.
Yeah.
Because it's an intersectional piece that I've seen just amongst friends and conversations that pop up, and you're like, huh, study. That might be an Asian thing as such, but it's that opportunity. That is our opportunity to any situation. I mean, I could come to Canada and study. I could come to UK or Australia and study, but it's the factor of you should study or you should learn. So how about that camera again? You said you brought it. Thank you so much. And what camera could I learn from? What is that you got there?
Well, that's a high-end ENG camera, and
ENG,
nobody
what
would
is that?
use that for
English
video
camera?
calls.
What does that mean?
No, it's electronic news gathering. It's a
Aha.
digital camera.
Sorry,
but
I know you
lens
and I
on
know
it
our
is
terms, but
very,
out there,
yeah.
Sorry.
ENG, really good. The other camera, the smaller one, was a portable one that I acquired in order to shoot sort of commercials with. Then I upgraded that to my other camera, which I haven't got out. It's packed away. If I'd known I was going to talk about my gear, I'd make a whole
So,
show out
so,
of
so
it. But
what brands are they? If we could just kind of give the
I
audience
prefer the Panasonics, actually. I did a
Panasonics.
shootout
Okay.
between Ikegamis, Sony's, Fernse's, and the Panasonic. And there was what's the Sanyos? No,
Sanyo,
something like that.
JVC.
Sanyos. JVC, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I got all the salesmen here to bring
What
their
are the
stuff into my studio
blind
at the
guy know about
university.
cameras, man, Dave? I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, you know. And I'm deaf and I know all about audio. No, it's
but it's
but
intersectional is everything. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I've
Sorry.
I've been very fortunate to be able to have opportunities in this area that I wouldn't have had in another time. Like if I'd have been born 10 years earlier or 5 years earlier, or 5 or 10 years later, I never would have been able to volunteer on a major television production. Uh, I was still working at the cable company, but I wanted to learn stereo television. That is, how do you do two-channel television and how do you mix and all the rest of that stuff. And I'd done some volunteering with bands and roadieing and that
So how
stuff, and I
old were you
learned
when you
PAs.
first started your volunteer journey gig situation?
Mhm.
Because we have a lot of
Well, I
groups
could say as a
age groups.
kid,
So
I was a volunteer all the time because my dad was heavily involved in community. So we all in the family
like
had
let's
to
say
learn to
15 years
volunteer.
old, 16 years old, you're out
Oh
in
yeah,
volunteer land,
even
or
even younger,
even younger. Okay,
volunteering at 12.
12. Okay,
But when I went out to this thing, I was 22,
copy.
and I got to meet the foremost Canadian engineer in audio, and he was doing a show with an orchestra and famous people like Burt Bacharach, um, Nana Muscuri, well, even Conway Twitty we had.
Wow.
So these were live audience in a concert hall with a full orchestra backing some of these groups. And his mix was for Burt Bacharach, it was 220 microphones. So we mic'd each instrument in the orchestra, and we mic'd each instrument in his band and his piano. And he had two pianos up. And I wanted to learn how that works. And so I got to learn what a mobile truck has as a console, and then how you do on-stage mixing for monitoring, and how you do room mixing for PA. And it was under the tutelage of this very, very expert guy he's resting in peace now, but he had a huge influence over how this works. And he let me follow him around because I wasn't allowed to touch anything. I was allowed to follow him around. And then he gave me 5 minutes after each break to answer questions that I had through the whole thing. Why are you using this mic on a saxophone? Why are you using this mic on a violin? And when he was in the console, why are you pre-mixing those 8 mics and these 16 mics before they go into the board to be one channel? And it's a Byzantine process, and wiring it up and unwiring it at the end of a show is always fun. But from there, I became really interested in becoming a studio engineer. And I was also training to be an FM announcer at the Technical Institute here.
Okay.
And I thought that was going to be my job, is talking on the radio.
Right.
But no, I had medical issues which prevent me from doing an 8-hour shift of speaking. I can't do it.
Right.
My lungs will not take it.
Right.
So I got into video, and I started being more behind the camera, and I made a living making training videos mostly, or instructional material. And when the university wanted a new producer, they hired me. And we're talking the late 80s at this point. And I did 10 years at that university, operating a studio and having a staff. And they produced instructional videos. So it'd be the entire history of the Ukrainian people in Canada in 8 minutes. So they would have lectures, they would have audiovisual materials they wanted augmenting. And through that, I learned interactive. We did DVDs,
so far,
we did laser discs, we did all that stuff.
I'm picking up a theme, Dave, is volunteer is one huge theme that through volunteering, that's where this kind of situation led for you to either work with different teams, as you alluded to, the four gentlemen with the audio game. And with even just the trial and error of volunteering, it's still the same process that you're doing today, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about the 80s. You mentioned the
Mm-hmm.
80s in that decade, that this is what you're
Yeah.
doing. The reason why I say this is children to a certain age group or generationally, people that are coming up now might not hear the same stories that we have heard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the power of
Those
volunteering,
opportunities don't exist now. That's part of the problem I'm seeing, is that the
right?
fact that I could walk into a TV studio and ask to meet the guy who does the audio,
Uh-huh.
you can't do that. You can't get past the front door. They won't let you in. So you
And
can't just sort of
what's the
open the
point of the
door and
friction, you
say, go
think?
in.
What's the point?
Security, fear.
Fear of?
Well, fear of exploitation,
Uh-huh.
fear of letting secrets be let out. Everybody seems to think the whole thing about making television is secret or a trade secret.
Right.
And I kept telling people I was training who were volunteers, there's no secret here.
Right.
But if you have talent, that distinguishes you. If you don't have talent, you're not going to go anywhere. You can use a camera all day long and have no talent doing it, and nobody
Right.
cares what your footage looks like. I've only met a few guys who were volunteers who, when they picked up a camera and started pointing it, were brilliant.
Right.
They could see stuff through the camera that most people look at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look through the lens rather than at the lens, you're going to see a whole new world.
Different world.
And if you can be good at making that available to other people, they'll pay you for it.
Well,
So
I'm
I
sorry to
learned editing,
disappoint you here,
and
Dave. I'm not much of a talent here at all, but just want to tell people a story. And like I said, right now I'm
Go
looking
ahead.
through these lens. Well, you're telling me this lens story, and it is going back and forth with this perspective of, we were going into this creator world now, and YouTube is definitely picking up steam. 70% of people are watching stuff on YouTube now, and television in itself, broadcasting in itself. As we were saying, the opportunities are becoming more and more grim to get through that front door. However, people from all abilities. And one question I had earlier that I just remembered is, let's just say as a blind individual, if I wanted to move to Canada, would you say it's a pretty simple method to get to Canada? Or, am I going to find something to do in Canada job-wise, maybe get into broadcasting, maybe get into a show or two? Is there an industry for someone that is blind, or is there help necessary in Canada right now for people like myself?
Um, I would say there's a good bunch of colleges in Canada that teach and graduate producers, directors, audio and camera people, and they do a great job filling the seats. Not everybody takes up my graduating class is only 12 people, and only 4 of them went into the business. I think the other 8 discovered this business is too hard. It's not as easy as I thought it would be, and they went off to do, one became an advertising executive, and another one became the PR guy for the police department. So he knew how to talk on camera, and he knew how to tell people things, but he didn't want to work in the business because it's too
Different skill
hard.
sets, yeah.
Right. But I have a few colleagues who've gone to the moon. I mean, they got Emmy nominations and that sort of stuff. And I was visiting Alexander Knight in Vancouver last year.
Portugal.
And I had a chance to detour to meet a guy I hadn't seen in 30 years because he and I had studied under Harvey, the audio guy. And he had a production studio in Vancouver, which is hugely successful. He's a multimillionaire. And he was joking with me that I've done all these very interesting things, and he's been a manager for 40 years. So he never got to have the adventures I had with, carrying a camera around, getting people to talk to me. So, yeah, I go with you that first problem you have is getting into Canada.
Right.
Our immigration is not like an open door. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes about 2 years for a person to qualify.
Mm-hmm.
And you come with qualifications. However, they aren't always recognized in Canada.
Okay.
So your graduating class or whatever film school
Doesn't
you went
make a
to
difference. Right.
may not be as good as Ryerson in Toronto. So we prefer people from Ryerson.
Right.
I guess the thing I look for is to find a company that's doing something really different in Canada, and make yourself available to them as a presenter, or even a person who knows how to turn somebody into a presenter and handle the back end.
I keep hearing that presenter
Um,
word thrown around a lot out there. It's
yeah,
fascinating you bringing that up again. And would you also say that even the acting and television industry is kind of just bigger? I mean, I've heard a lot about Toronto and Vancouver and little hubs
hmm
of just, nothing but television production work. Would you say that
yeah,
maybe is there more of an opening in that space because of that?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because,
I mean, in the States, Atlanta is turning into the next
right,
Hollywood because
right.
it's the next place everyone wants to shoot. And for a while, Vancouver offered every kind of environment from jungle to desert for people to shoot in. And locations in Alberta have been used because of the flat, wide prairie we have, but also the tall mountains. And so people bring their productions here because, of course, the currency is different and they
And
save money.
you mentioned the shrubs and greenery and different nature. Have you ever heard of
hmm
a organization called VocalEye? VocaliEye? Have you ever heard of that around Canada area? Or does that kind of ring a bell to you?
It's it rings a bell, but I can't say I
So
know. I didn't know it was Canadian.
they
That's
do they organize audio description, but some of these plays and theatrics, as we talk, because we're trying to give everybody these different imageries. We don't have any graphics up, so no worries to my blind constituents that there's no really graphics up, but listen to our words and we'll try to paint a picture for you. But going back to that
mhm.
is the shrubbery. I saw The Secret Garden recently, and you got to feel the 1920s suit or the tux the gentleman wore, the bustier the woman wore, the
Mhm.
different lit colors of the film that you would put over lights to give different dramatic feeling, like yellow and purple and pink, and just to give it a different
Yeah.
vibrance. And so, being said that, have you worked with organizations to kind of that know more about stuff like that, or do you find that not a lot of people are putting in the effort to make better content, to make, let's say, audio description as part of their package? Do you find that you're seeing more of that in Canada as where you are with your experiences?
No, I don't. I don't see enough of it. I know
Enough.
some
Okay.
people are trying, and many people are becoming more aware of the reality that more people are watching YouTube and all the rest, and that
Right.
the transcription and text to speech and all that stuff
Because I'm actually
is
seeing
very
quite a few
necessary.
people in your area in Canada, like that's what they do for their living, right? And they're getting hired
hmm
to be a audio describer. And again, for
Yeah.
we look at the talent as, okay, the talent that's on stage, but there's talent on the back end. There's talent behind the camera. There's talent that's in the switching room. There's talent everywhere that we look
hmm
around. The
Yeah.
audio mixer is what we call an A1. What is
Yeah.
A1 and what is A2? Could you decipher that for me, by any chance?
Sure. And A1 is the top person in the chain of audio. He's making all the decisions. He's like the director of audio. And the cameramen and the operators of the audio gear are A2s and threes. So A1 is the guy who's going to decide what microphones we're using and where they're going to get placed and where we're going to put the lines and how we're going to get the whole thing together. And then an A2 might operate the PA system if there's a PA required for sound reinforcement. And then an A3 might actually be pre-mixing in a truck or monitoring the recording. They used to have guys called tape operators in studios because they had 3 or 4 tape machines. And if all 3 of them are engaged in recording the Bee Gees, which was a reality,
Hmm.
you get 600 tracks, and you're doing it back and forth between machines. And a tape operator just sat there and made sure all the machines were ready to go, clean, had tape ready, and were threaded up properly and then they could locate a reel if somebody asked for a particular take. He
Right,
could know where the reel was, load it up, and get it going. It was also special effects on audio too. So
right.
I got to be a tape operator for a short time because that was part of that volunteer thing of learning how to do it. I
Hmm.
was in the mixing room as they were mixing down these 200 tracks, and you need a few guys in front of the console. It's like doing a movie. And I got to put my hands on the console eventually, and they started to trust me, and I got to mix a couple of shows.
And you said the
So
word
yeah, there's
earlier, truck. So is it like, like, you know, what is this
it's
truck?
a semi-trailer with
so it is a
TV
semi-truck,
gear
like a
in
truck.
it.
Okay, because
Yeah,
it,
it's a
hey,
mobile
again, we using words
production
that they
unit.
don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, well, at one time, and we're a sports community here. We're a big
Yes.
time championship sports community. Each of the 4 TV stations in Edmonton had a mobile truck. Each of them were big 50-foot mobiles, and they had full production gear inside. They could shoot on any location and make anything look gorgeous. We have festivals here all over the place, so they would show up at these things, but also they would compete for the sports broadcast, the football sports, the hockey sports, and it's a lucrative business to do that, so they could afford these things. Now, 2 of our TV stations have helicopters for whatever reason. I don't know. They're very expensive things, but we're a city of 1 million people, but I don't think we need a helicopter. But anyway, I'm getting diverted here. But I think in what you're talking about, the community I know is aging out, and the young community are coming up. And I do know some of the people that are in Vancouver shooting movies. My sister has been they call them oh, now you're going to catch me on this. They used to call them continuity people, and now they're script assistant.
Okay.
Is the director's assistant who holds the script all day
Right.
and tells him what his next shot is going to be.
Right.
So my sister has done that for many years. She's retired now, but she worked on all kinds of stuff, and she's an Albertan. I had a guy who was a location expert, and he's located for things like Superman and a lot of TV shows in Canada, and he finds these amazing locations that look like something else. And you can say, we're in Budapest today, and you're not in Budapest. You're in Saskatchewan somewhere. So it's really fun for these guys, and to watch people's careers go. I've got many. One of the people I went to school with is now one of Canada's top cinematographers.
Wow.
And he's an amazing guy. And then there's a fellow I taught. I actually showed him how to do television when he was in high school, because he volunteered at the cable company to make his own TV show. He wanted to make his own. And what the show was about? Filmmaking. So he got to introduce himself to all the filmmakers in Edmonton through a TV show. He got the excuse of getting them on TV. And he talked to film editors and directors and cinematographers. But this fellow I went to college with to learn radio and television ended up becoming a very good cinematographer in all the formats, and a terrific editor too, but he doesn't do that anymore. So he and I have stayed in touch, and I've celebrated his career as much as he celebrates mine. But we went divergent. He went commercial, and I went instructional.
So
and instructional
with
video is lucrative as well.
With that instructional bit there, what is your recommendation to, let's say, new upcoming audience members that want to get to become a creator? What comes first, what comes last kind of situation? So what is Dave Tropman's advice to say this goes first and this should go last?
Well, I guess I hesitate to give anyone advice. Advice is not meant to be taken, it's meant to be considered. So don't do what Dave says, but just consider. I think if I were to total it all up, and if the category was, separated out, probably a third to a half of YouTube is instructional. So actually, there's a big, interest in doing that. And I think also in the sense that people think that other people know what they're saying. They know something about something and they want to tell people about it. Then they put up a YouTube channel. So there's a guy who, watches all the plane crashes and analyzes them and tries to tell you what he thinks caused the plane crash. But he's in aviation, and he's now learned to do presentations on YouTube. I think, people like Justine,
yes,
went into it and then realized she didn't want to do broadcast. She wanted to do her own show.
Yeah.
And the way to do that was to make it
just
on YouTube
in time and all of the stuff in the old days. Yeah.
She had the right timing, right? And I'm talking again about where you're born in the timeline.
Yeah.
That the opportunities are different for people today. That I probably wouldn't get into television or radio
Right.
in my life if I was born just at my son's time,
Mm-hmm.
because the demand is different, and you'd have to adapt your skills to fit the demand.
Yeah.
So I developed a wide range of generalized skills so that I could slot myself in pretty much anywhere. I've been asked to do audio on other people's films.
That's
I don't
awesome.
do film audio very often, but I know enough about it to be
To get
able
it done.
to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And she got a small award for her film.
Right.
I've also produced other people's films, and I've gotten nominated for that. And also, I have shot other people's stuff forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only done, 6 or 7 of my own films.
Your own films.
And yeah, and they get shown amongst my friends, and they don't get shown in a theater because nobody cares. And I did have my own show on cable.
There, Dave. Come on now.
Yeah.
What about
on
these
cable,
other
I did
folks
an
out
instructional show about how our city works, and showing how streetlights work, and
Right.
how sewer systems work, and how water treatment plants work, and all that sort of stuff. And with my camera on my shoulder, they would open doors for me and show me things that most people don't get to see.
Don't get to see it.
So I had that adventure as well.
You know,
But how you do that today, I don't know you could.
I'm finding that same interest. I mean, I use my white cane as my camera. You have your camera on your
Mhm.
shoulder. I use my white cane. Because, I mean, I went to Infocom recently, and to have that
I saw that.
physical touch. So, like, I'm thinking of your cameras back there, the Panasonic, and what do you have? But to hold a red camera, or to hold a $75,000 just a lens, that's just it's just like, wait, what? What am I holding here? It's fascinating, but it's not to say that don't hold yourself back from things. I think it's more important, because you may have fancy microphones and they might be expensive, but to me, if I were to say advice, is I think audio does come first in many perspectives. I'm already critical of my videos that I took on just my phone, don't have a microphone or wireless setup on my body. So, you know, when I'm learning from yourself, learn from even our first experience, it's called special needs. And, you know, I still look at that video there, Dave, and I'm like, why did we call it special needs? I mean, am I special? What's wrong with me? But it wasn't that. It's just, it was again, locale, right? In Canada, you may say it as special needs. In other parts of the United States, you may say it that way. India may say it that way. As we used earlier, disabilities versus abilities, kind of the same things, but you may say, hey, do you want to know my abilities being blind? Or do you want to know my disability, which is blindness?
Well, special skills fit into that as well, right?
Right.
Special abilities to discern listening. You can hear.
Yep.
I can hear that.
Phone agrees with
I have... I have the benefit of having had close contact and a family member who was disadvantaged.
Right.
And his disadvantages were obvious. Not everybody is obvious.
Yep.
But my wife says I have an uncanny ability to see a person on the street walking by and know that they're disabled in some way.
Yeah. And sometimes
I can tell by the expression sometimes, maybe the way they walk, or the inattention to some things, and maybe even the way they wave their hands can indicate to me. She also says I'm very good at finding drunk people and people on drugs. So
well, like they say with blindness, it's a spectrum of vision loss, right? And sometimes in the legal paperwork, it might say legally blind. Well, it said that in 2005. It's 2025 today, and the fact that what I used to be able to do then, I didn't have a cane that I used often, and today I use a cane mostly every day. So reason why we always bring back and forth these camera lenses or perspectives, is, as I call them, is that we want to give focus on life does change. Places and timings do change. MTV was huge where I live here in Central Florida area. BET, Black Entertainment Television, and all the music artists and all the filming, and but we're still doing it today.
Oh, Spanish language,
Spanish language, but audio description, for example, is on secondary audio programming. That used to be known for Spanish language. Sports is still used for that. But point being is, you've been behind the camera, you've worked alongside with people, and then
Mm-hmm.
the different abilities, right? So like when we did the special needs, that was the first time I ever did a presentation. We went back
Mm-hmm.
and forth. We talked. Hey, we should get the iBug people to come on. We should get this person. Everyone
Yeah.
kind of backed out at the end when we needed to get more guests, but it worked out the way it worked out. Things broke for the right reasons. When I lost audio on that show, I remember going back and I'm like, oh Lord, his audio's not working. But we didn't need to communicate because even though we were virtual, we had this understanding of
Mm-hmm.
how to communicate. You kept the show going. I slid in. I did my thing. I think we explained what is it WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines back then,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
we I think we took a mix of it. We called it different names. What would do you recall any of those? I think we just we tried to put a different spin on it altogether. Was it one of them was cognition? I think you remember any of those?
Yeah, we'd have to have John Snyder here to kind of keep us in line because he was the co-producer of the Saturday show and he was
And
very expert
I'm so
in
glad you said
people
that. Yes, the education hour.
neurodivergence and that sort of thing. Yeah. But he and I sort of tried to keep the ball rolling in education, discovering there is no more an audience or guests
Mm-hmm.
or people to talk to. And so it was us talking to ourselves about how education's important. John and I decided, we just lay this aside, and then it
Right,
opened a door for doing a completely different show,
right.
and that was more. I think that show was more important than
And
the
what
other
show would you
ones
call
that
that
we've done.
for the audience again?
The
They're like, what are you
the
guys talking about?
the show on special needs. Yeah,
Special, yeah. So again, the
yeah,
special needs, I'll link it down in the description, as they say, or wherever that box is. But point being is that we took an idea. We wanted to share accessibility. I was already living the life in accessibility. Dave already had lived
yeah.
the life with a sibling, so it was understanding or more understanding of what the situation is. And
Hmm.
I guess we both put milk and ice cream together, and it was a milkshake, or however you
You
make
bet.
milkshakes.
And it
And
had many flavors.
right, because I mean, to me, I think these conversations are more important. And again, I've learned already so much just from the brief moments that we've spoke. So we're gonna have to have you
Mm.
come back, and we'll dive into specifics because we went into AV. Well, can a blind person get into
Yeah,
AV? That's one whole topic on its own. Then number two, we talked about teamwork and volunteering and stuff. Well, that inspiration in itself for anyone that's 16 right now in high school, anyone that is 66 and has lost their sight and figuring out what do I do with my life. There's space
yeah.
and place for everybody. It's just how do we engage people virtually, physically, mentally, pick a word. So any other things, thoughts that you have for the audience here, Dave? Again, I really
Well, I
appreciate
think
it, and thank you so much for
yeah,
being here.
in the context of what we've talked about today, I think talking about preparing for disability is a non-subject for most people. They don't really get that. I think I credit you with putting me back on the track of trying to prepare for when I lose my sight.
What did I do? Sight. No,
Well,
you have so much
you've
vision, man.
shown me
Look at
that
your vision with your camcorders and stuff. Look at all that vision.
no, I'm talking
You're
about my
envisioning.
eyesight.
Oh,
I'm
your
losing my
actual eyesight.
eyesight.
Oh,
I am actually losing my eyesight. Yes, my ears are perfectly fine. We get them tested every 2 years.
yes,
But
honey.
my
Yes,
doctor
honey.
is warning me
Oh wait,
that
that's a honeydew list
there's.
speaking.
That's right. Yes, I think no. My doctor's told me that my eyes are going to go, and I have to start preparing for that. And
Is that
so I've
glaucoma
started training
or
myself.
what would we call it? Do you
It's
have any idea?
a degradation in my optic nerve.
Copy that.
So I've got optic nerve decline.
Hmm.
And there's no real surgery for that because we don't understand how the nerve works. Uh, but yeah, my mom had the
Robots.
glaucoma and that sort of stuff. Oh, I've had robots in me, let me tell you. They've been in me, and that was great. Slept through the whole thing.
Right.
Um, I think, I've gone through that in the last couple of years. I've done more to plan to prepare either an environment for when I can't see or strategies for when I can't see. I've started learning to make coffee without seeing. I can almost do it blindfolded now. And I think I'm getting those skills. See, coffee is very important to me,
Here,
as
we
it
have
is to a
vanilla
lot of
Coke.
people
Let's
on
see if I
office
can
hours.
do it
But
without spilling the can. All right.
yeah, without spilling. Yeah, there we go. And the things I watch other blind people with. Now I'll leave you with one last little note
Go
because
ahead.
my
Go ahead.
father was a management accountant. And for the last part of his life and the working life before he retired, he was the chief manager of the Edmonton branch of the CNIB, the Canadian National Institute for the Blind.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
And
I've
they
heard of
had a
them.
training room.
Hmm.
Yeah, they had a training room in the basement, which was, a living room and a kitchen where newly blind people were given coaching and all that. And I found it totally interesting because, of course, the modification of the environment is necessary because you don't want to trip and stumble and hurt yourself a lot. And also, open doors uh, can be a risk right there, assuming a door is open or it's not. A screen door, yeah, we've seen people walk through a screen door. Well, I'm starting
Watch
now
out for that
to
tree.
spend
Oh,
my
wait, that's Tarzan.
that's a person. Yeah, so I'm keen on my audio. I'm good with echolocation, and I'm learning to manipulate things without having to look at them. And this is partly what I think you've contributed to me, is that you've shown that this is a doable thing, and that you can actually be on camera. The way you work your chair and lock it, and then the way you use the mic to locate it, and then you rely on other people to tell you if you're in the middle and whether you've changed something behind you, whether it's a problem or not, is community. And that's community
That's that word
helping
again.
everybody.
Volunteer and
And
community.
we
You
can't
found that
live
word for
without
me. Thank you.
community. Nobody
Yes.
can live by themselves.
Nope.
We all need community. So
Yes.
that's my lesson for today.
Wonderful lesson there, Dave. And again, I do believe it is the community because if it wasn't for the community, I wouldn't have met you. You wouldn't have come on. And the community, if they wouldn't have pushed me, I wouldn't have this channel today. So, again,
Mm-hmm.
we look forward to having more discussions. Again, better is not always better, but audio should be better because then I could hear you properly. That's just
Yeah.
something that I feel with this conversation. We've gone maybe 1 hour or so, but it's been painless. It's been just seamless. We've just been bouncing from one perspective or one camera lens to another. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're learning from each other. And again, yes, your vision may go one day. Yes, you may not go. You don't have the secret code to know how much is going to go. It might go 5%. It might go 2%. It might go 89%. You're not going to be the one that gauges that. So what you're doing right
Mm-hmm.
now, I really do commend you to figure out the things that you already know. And that's all it is. Life,
Mm-hmm.
you already know life, but we get
Yeah.
things opened up in our minds to let us know, oh, yeah, if we do this, we'll burn ourselves. If we do that, we might hurt ourselves. And you don't play with fire. You don't play with water. So you learn as a kid that I shouldn't do stuff like that. So with vision, it is a myth to say that your vision gets better or you start hearing better, blah, blah. It's
Hearing better. Yeah.
it's a big,
That's a
huge
myth.
myth.
Yeah.
It
You're
is
just
that you
paying
pay
attention differently.
attention.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then as you just alluded, you've already started
Yeah.
to pay attention to your surroundings, your coffee,
Yeah.
making it on your own. And again, you're not even blind. You don't have to
Well,
be blind.
I credit learning about audio and mixing and
Hmm.
microphone quality and
You guys gave me the wrong pill now,
polar
man.
patterns and all the rest taught me to hear, to listen to
Yeah.
what microphones sound like and to what people sound like,
Now
to
when
what
I
the
hear
real
bad
sound of
audio,
a
I'm like,
violin is versus what a microphone picks up. So it's that sort of thing that my ears are going to save me if I lose my sight. So.
And you know what? Even for deaf blind folks, I mean, we have captioning put onto this. These are the different technologies, right? So I'm grateful that
Mm.
Zoom has powered the situation right now, this conversation.
Yeah,
We've had the
yeah.
captioning turned on for people that are deafblind. We come from different abilities, as we just said. Blindness just happens to be one of the things that affects me. Multiple sclerosis is another. But we still have a lot to
Hmm.
unravel here, Dave. And when's the next time you got on
Yeah.
your schedule? When you want to come back? Anytime soon?
We could try this again next Tuesday. No,
What?
let's move it to Wednesday.
He wants to come
Yeah.
back that quick, guys. So if you want him that quick, let us know. We could still come back and keep on this
Hmm.
conversation. Like I said, we just made this a little bit
Our next one
longer.
could be really esoteric, really theoretical and
That's
not
it.
so just Dave oriented.
So I look forward for that conversation for sure. And maybe, you know what? I'll tell you what, Dave. How about you go tag somebody for me? And you tell them, please, you know that one dude, Hershi or Harshid or whatever you guys want to call me, whenever you do call me on Office Hours Global or out here as they call me, Hershey Bar, the blind accessible resource. How about if you go tag somebody for me and let them know they could just knock on the door and come interview and come have a conversation and
Hmm.
we'll have more of these. I mean, what do you think so far? I mean, hopefully you're enjoying the channel and the content. We there's some new technologies and innovation with signage that's happening, braille cadence tablet and stuff like that. So I hope that you like the content that's on there so far. But
Yeah.
I definitely would say
Well, I've
go.
always been excited by assistive technologies, so we could probably go around that circle too.
Yeah.
I'll see if somebody I know wants to put themselves on.
Hey, yeah, just go ahead and tag them. So Dave's gonna tag y'all. So if be aware if Dave picks you, you gotta do what
I
Dave
got,
tells you.
don't ignore my emails.
Well, Dave, such a pleasure again. And is there any places that they could come check you out or go ask more questions to you specifically? Because
No, I'm completely off the grid up here in Canada. No, no, I chop my own wood. I have my
if we could all do the
I
same things,
generate my
Dave.
own electricity. No, I'm no. There's no real contact for Dave.
Okay.
I
Drop a
I've sort
comment
of
down
I've
below if
closed
they
my
want to say hi to
company.
you or ask you a question or two,
Yeah,
maybe.
a couple of years ago, I shut my company down. So if you want to reach me, I'm on Discord with the Office Hours group, and if
There you
that
go.
group has to extend outside Discord, then you'll have to find me somewhere because
If you
I'm
guys have
not
a pigeon,
online. I have
just
no
put the
blogs. I don't
letter
go on
pigeon.
Facebook or any of those
You don't
platforms.
you don't receive
Um,
pigeons. Sorry.
no.
Okay,
Um,
sorry. Scratch that idea. Don't put the
no, I've
pigeon in the letter. Don't do that.
because I'm a media specialist, and I mean that in the broader sense of the term,
Yes.
in that media theorists and media specialists look at all the influences of media on the brain,
Hmm.
and I'm one of those people. And as a result, every time there's a new platform out or some new social media,
Hmm.
I experiment with it until I understand it, and then I know the effects it's having on the brain, and
And
then I go
before
away
I
from
let you
it.
go on
So
that
I never
term, as
go
you
on as
said,
myself.
Discord. What is that a good, bad?
Yeah,
Because you just brought that up, and now I have more questions. Before I let you
yeah.
go, what is Discord to you? Good or bad?
Well, Discord is actually community building.
Okay,
That's what it
so
is.
I say good.
Yeah, it builds community, allows people to have separate and isolated conversations, have circles that are small or big, and it
Uh-huh.
also allows collaboration. I don't think we could do the remote stuff we do at office hours without Discord. You can't organize people as well as you can on Discord.
I
It
agree.
just won't work with email. Yeah.
So I guys out there,
So
I've made the
there's that.
Discord. It's I forgot the password, which oops, the Discord's
Got to write
there.
those things down, my friend. Yeah.
It was late. It was like 3 in the morning. I was working hard for you guys
Oh,
out
you
there.
can't do that stuff at 3 a.m. Come
I know.
on.
I
Be
didn't.
disciplined here. Come
I put
on.
my head up and it's 3, man. What am I supposed to do? But Discord is ready to go soon enough. More channels to come in there. I'll
Mhm.
post a link down there
All
because
right.
again, I think community
Good.
building is so important, and I agree 110. Dave, we're gonna have you come back like really soon. Doesn't have to be
Yeah.
next Tuesday. It doesn't have to be anytime soon. But we want to
All
continue
right.
this conversation with you whenever when it's time,
Sure.
when time permits and it's convenient for you. So thank you so
All
much.
right. We'll see how it goes here in July. All
All
right.
right, sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much, and don't forget I have to keep saying this because not enough people are doing it. Subscribe. Cheers.